to the computer. Thank you all for joining. We're going to go ahead and slowly and purposefully get started. As folks continue to join on Zoom, thank you all for coming. We are going with the flow. We're pivoting due to extreme weather conditions in the San Francisco area. We didn't want folks to get involved if the roads begin to flood. We wanted folks to be safe. And so here we are at our Stop Willow press conference. And we are extremely grateful to be hosted on Ramaytush Ohlone lands. Forgive me if I said that incorrectly. My name is Sarah. I am a community member of Utqiagvik, although I live currently on Danaina lands in Anchorage, Alaska. We're here. We have sent Rue Ramos and Charla Hausman down to San Francisco to be there in person for our hearing tomorrow morning at the U.S. Supreme Court of Appeals. And we are appealing the approval of the Willow project, which is going to be the largest, if it's built, it will be the largest oil and gas production facility in Alaska. And in this time of climate change, we're standing up and we're saying, no, this is not the time to do a project like this, as countries all over the world are scrambling to see meaningful emissions cuts that are needed to stop climate catastrophe. And so on that, I'm very pleased to pass the mic over to our folks there in San Francisco on the ground. Big thanks to all the people behind the scenes that helped us to put this together last minute with the weather being like it chose to be today. And I wanted to just say our organization is called Sovereign Inupiaq for a Living Arctic. We are a grassroots organization made up of community members and Inupiaq stakeholders of the North Slope and around Inuit Nunat, Inuit country. And SILA, it means environment, including us, including our bodies and beyond out into the far into the into space. And so just on that note, I give you Rue and Charla.
You can start on. Uvanga Kalak. Katiak Milgorunga. My name is Kalak. My tonic name, my tonic sinyacha is Rue Ramos. And my people are from Guyana. And we are here to challenge the status quo of extracting from our earth with no consideration for the impacts on our Nuna, our lands, our waters, our existence as both indigenous people and as settlers and people who have come from far away to live with us here. And we are asking for our voices to be heard. We are asking for our community health and the health of our lands and our waterways to be respected and loved in a way that so far the colonial project has not been able to achieve, and we are asking for that to be done in a way that includes our voices and includes our lifeways in authentic ways. We have a right to our lands, we have a right to our communities, and we have a right to save our earth for our children and our future children and our children's children into time immemorial in the future. And we are asking for that to happen, and we are asking for the corporate grind and the capitalistic project that is the United States and the corporations that are treated as human beings, even though they are not human beings. They have more of a say in our lands than we do, and that is wrong. And we are calling that colonial violent way of being. We're calling it out, and we are asking it to be stopped. The people who live on the Arctic and who live in places where their villages are falling into the ocean, and the impacts of our tutu, our caribou, not being able to travel their natural ways because of these types of projects. We are asking for their existence to be respected all along, including our fish, including all of the animals and all of our plants and animals to be able to exist with fresh and clean water and air, and for us to truly address the crisis that our Earth is facing. I'm going to pass it.
All right. Before I start talking, I want to take a moment of silence just to pray within our hearts for justice for the people and justice for the land. All right. Thank you for joining me in that moment of silence and prayer. My name is Charlotte Houseman. I'm an Alaska native. I'm from the village of Point Lay, Alaska. I'm a tribally enrolled member. And before I start out, I'm gonna read this poem that my 12-year-old Nagavorok, Annalie, wrote. She's been fighting the Willow Project by my side since she was 7, and she sent me with this feather and this message to carry, and it's a poem that she wrote about the Willow Project. And it is, leave our waters alone, leave our home, let us live, because we've known what you've done to our lands. Your hands filled with disgrace, you're not tricking anyone by digging a grave, hole in our land while we're raising our hands. Yelling with pride, we show no fear, for this is our tribal lands in which we need to be clear, not killing off the caribou and their babies too. And that was by Nagavorok, she's 12. We care about who will be affected and how. Any detrimental objective arises that will put our Alaska Native communities' health and safety at risk, we'll stand up and speak our concerns. We won't sit back in silence. Traditionally, as the opposition of such a large and detrimental project, we're aware of the systemic tactics used by these companies. They'd like for us to be distracted or fighting each other as Alaska Natives versus Alaska Natives, when in all honesty, it's our collective safety, well-being, and food security versus ConocoPhillips. Throughout the years, I've personally written every Alaska state politician who claims to represent Alaskan voices. I've called the White House. I've written President Biden voicing these concerns. I'm an enrolled tribal member of the village of Point Lay, one of the 8 communities that will be affected by this project in particular. I was born as far north as you could go in the United States in Utqiagvik, Alaska, and I grew up in the northwest coast of Alaska. My diet was mainly Alaska Native traditional foods harvested by my parents and other local hunters, and salmon from the Yukon River from my grandmother. I'm here today as a concerned Alaska Native. There's a common misconception that our Native corporations represent all community members' opinions. If that were true, I wouldn't have to be here right now. I'm a volunteer and long-term member of Sovereign Inupiat for a Living Arctic. I've been standing up in opposition against the Willow Project since 2019. I can safely say I have the support of many Inuit and affected community members who mean the world to me. My great-grandmother grew up in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, before it was labeled one of America's most significant oil fields. She documented her experiences, including fresh air, access to fresh water, and all the food that they could possibly need for themselves and their dog team. Stated in the prior record of decision, the Willow Project would increase mental health illness, including suicide in Arctic slope communities. These communities include Anaktuvik Pass, Atkasuk, Kaktovik, Nuksut, Point Hope, Utqiagvik, Wainwright, and my hometown, Point Lay. My main concerns are the health impacts, negative impacts on quality life, and the changes to our already limited food security. In Inupiaq, food security is threatened by this project. As stated in the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement, this project will significantly impact the Teshupuk caribou herd. The toxics and pollutants from this project would affect the plants that are harvested and those eaten by the animals and harvested from nearby communities. The Willow project would significantly impact the air quality and create more toxics and pollutants that will lead to disease. As stated in the prior record of decision, the Willow project would give little to no jobs to the residents of affected communities. And then I'll end out with a poem that I've written just throughout this process. Dear America, don't be so mean. We've been on the same land, eating the same food since the beginning. What they failed to say in their statement says they're hating. Our family's been poisoned by the same governments and taken. You think I'm the enemy, you're sadly confused and mistaken. Count the wrongful deaths and call in the cancellations. While these fools is eating fine, our food security's wasting. I forgot there's gonna be some cussing in here. They get so laterally violent, man, that shit is so blatant. Throwing their weight in the media without hesitation to leave a message for the rest. These are the depths that we're facing. With a heart the size of home, can't leave these intrusions alone. They constantly encroaching on the lungs of our home. We ain't fighting these battles just to get nothing done. It's an uphill massacre, man, that shit isn't fun. The animals, the land, it seems they speak for themselves. If we don't slow down the poison, then we pay with our health. While the pockets of the greedy get suspended in wealth, I do this out of love, I ain't in it for self. You know my voice is meaningful, I could say the same about yours. But when it comes to saving lives in the discussion, they're bored. I know colonization taught you wealth comes from the Lord, but when you turn our land and waters to Flint, Michigan, I say watch all your words. Match them up with my actions. I think you'll find something useful and gain something you're lacking. I don't get what you hate. Is it the truth or the passion? When you see my heart, I know you'll think I'm bashing, but open your eyes and close your wallet because this oil is our casket.
Also, free Palestine.
That's the end of my statement.
Thank you so much. Uplifting that there are actions all around the world today and this weekend and ongoing for calling for a ceasefire for Palestine and a ceasefire for the people in Gaza. Thanks for bringing that up, Rue. Well, thank you all for your words. I was also standing by for we have depositions that were included in our court hearing from our elder leadership, and I was just going to. We wanted to share their words, although folks are unable to join because of a lot of other travel engagements and whatnot. And so I'm just getting a hold of those. If you just stand by for a moment. In the meantime, I did want to invite, and I know I'm putting you 100% on the spot, but we do have a wonderful leader here with us attending on our webinar, and Pangawi with IEN. I know I'm totally putting you on the spot, Ponganga, but if you, we're really honored to have you here with us. And if you wanted to share anything, I know you were in Dubai recently at the COP, whatever. I'll let you go ahead. It sounds like you're with us.
Sure. Hwanga aka bangangan ng naka pangawi, hwanga ataka kanaterma naka kirstanuga pas, hwanga sivunga kami. I come from St. Lawrence Island, and St. Lawrence Island is a place, and I think Sarah knows this really well because she works at ACAT, but is considered one of the most polluted places in the world. This is, first of all, because of the military spill, the intentional military spill that happened after the Cold War when the US didn't want their large military base usable. They intentionally had people cut fuel lines and spill them, and we were also exposed to heavy metals. And all of these pollutants seeped into a lagoon where we received fish, and we also, children learned how to swim there, and that was on the northeast cape of our island. We are also very polluted because the toxics of the world are attracted to the north. They travel through current, through the ocean, and there are only two thoroughways to the Arctic. That's the Bering Strait and the Fram Strait, and the island where I'm from is located in the Bering Strait. As a result of this, we have extremely high cancer rates. We have children who are getting brain tumors at the age of 10. And this is one of the injustices that we're facing as a result of environmental violence. And I really appreciate and I'm so grateful to the people from ACAT and the people who preceded them. So Annie Aloha and Vaiwari, they're people from my island that I admire very greatly for their work in coining the term environmental violence. So we recognize and understand that as Indigenous peoples, we have always been the sacrifice zones and the stepping stools of the global North and Western society. And we understand also that there is a parallel between how Earth is treated and how Indigenous women and Indigenous Two-Spirit people are treated. And that's a really important part of this conversation as well, because with development and with the man camps that come with development, because that is an intentional way that things are set up. It is an intentional act that temporary homes with men who don't have any accountability to their community because they're living in connexes that are made into temporary homes. They don't have any roots in the community. And these communities are always around Indigenous homelands. And so these men come in and they practice what has been done since colonization. You know, it was a military tactic to rape and to cause violence against the women who are sacred holders of the ability to create, just like our Mother Earth. And so when you're cutting into the earth and you're raping and you're murdering Mother Earth, we're seeing that reflected in our Indigenous women and our Indigenous Two-Spirit people who are very closely connected to the land and are considered creators and healers. And so we need to constantly bring that into the conversation, because there are papers and there are studies that show the parallel and the increase in the amount of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples wherever these development projects are. And in myself being a mother and myself having given birth and lost a child just within the last year, whom I was going to call, her name was Willow. And so I feel very, very connected to this issue and really can see the parallel between not only development and the murder of Indigenous peoples, but also, you know, as a society and as a global community. The only reason that climate change is even possible is because we allow ourselves to have people and places designated as sacrifice zones. If everybody was treated equally and nobody was permitted to harm groups of peoples, then over emission would not even be possible. And so this is not only impacting Indigenous peoples, but it's impacting all of us, because Indigenous peoples are not going to be the only people who are harmed by climate change. I hope I didn't take up too much space. Thank you for inviting me last minute.
No, just right. Thank you so much for your thoughtful words and for your work. It's very inspiring and important, and I'm still working on getting a hold of the pieces to read. So if we would stand by for just a moment. One thing for sure is that, you know, this all of the legal jargon is lengthy and pretty inaccessible for most people. And we are maintaining in our work at SILA that we are just community members. We are residents and people with roots to the land, and with our Indigenous leadership that we have a right to speak up, to use our voices that we were given, and speak up for the land and water as just people that don't stand to gain money or prestige. We are trying to just do the best we can with what we have, using all the tools in our toolbox. And so uplifting that, we're really super grateful to have the support, although no one, I believe, was able to join today, from the local, the tribe in the unceded territory of San Francisco, but that they stand beside us in this, in our fight, is really meaningful as we are working on their land. And just wanted to name them, and Sogorate is, I believe, the Sogorate Lands Trust is the folks in San Francisco, in what we call San Francisco. And yeah, Ramatush Ohlone as well, but I'm still learning about all of the peoples whose lands the US has taken over. And so there's a lot for all of us to learn, but it's important to do so and continue on that. Okay, Ramatush Ohlone. So that's all right. The other one was in the East Bay, and we're very grateful for these relationships that we have cultivated with Indigenous peoples around the United States and beyond. And I also want to mention the Confederated Villages of Lejeune Ohlone. So I'm going to take a moment to gather this statement that I will read, if you just give me a second. If anyone wants to say any other words while there's some silence here, I'll leave it to you guys.
Well, I guess I
I
could.
wanted to, oh, okay, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I just really quick before I give it back to you. Also the division in the Indigenous community that is incited by outside powers. The whole concept of regional quote unquote corporations who are treated like people, who are for profit. Those structures were created not by Indigenous peoples and not with our values. And while some of our elders and some of our communities, while in survival mode and while, facing great oppression and facing colonization, felt the need to do something for our communities. And we greatly respect the people who were involved in that process of really trying to do something. We also, at the same time as respecting them, can recognize that these systems were imposed upon us and were not from our communities. And as a result of that, it has caused division, and it has caused conquering of the Alaska Native voice, because these systems are made to create hierarchical structures, and they create, in the same way that the United States has a 1%, our Indigenous communities, in a way, have a 1% as well. And those 1%ers, sometimes their voices are the ones that are really listened to by the systems. And I just want to point out that, there's a lot of attempts to incite division and hate and harm in our relationships between community members. And as Indigenous peoples, you'll see the media trying to play games to try to incite that division and that conflict on a national or even international platform. And we see that game, we see that tactic, and we're not buying into it. We're not going to buy into that division, and we can both hold an understanding that it is wrong to harm our mother, and it is harmful to develop the land and harm the air and harm the animals. We can hold that truth, and we can also hold the recognition that some of our community members, through a very complicated process, have been made to buy into that, which is, just a natural survival tactic, or like a survival reaction in any community that we would see. And those attempts to divide and harm the relationships between peoples, even if in some moments we might see manifestations of that, overall our communities are still staying through the generational healing process. We're still staying whole, and we're not going to, I don't believe that we're going to fall for that, through our multi-generational healing process. I really believe that our communities are going to stay whole.
Reading that book. That was really good. I really appreciate you sharing.
Well, I apologize. I am trying to figure out which page in the, let's see, 100 and how many pages do we have of this court case? I did not look for it beforehand, and so that's all me. But I think that I can still find it. So if Rue or Charlotte, you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I guess I could add that, the tactics being used by, by corporations and by the system is intended, or it is practiced across the world in Indigenous communities across the world, including in Palestine, including in New Zealand, including in Southeast Asian countries, including, across the entire world, in Sudan, in Africa, in all across the world in Indigenous communities, these tactics we know. And so we have to start connecting the dots and making sure that we see how the practice of turning corporations into humans and recognizing them as people was the first step in it's probably one of the most anti-Indigenous ways of being that there could be, is this idea that we're going to pretend like collective involvement and investment in a corporation is what we would consider Indigenous ways of being, of collectivism, when really it's just hyper individualism and a continuation of how we push our communities to think of just themselves rather than the collectivism. And again, that's a tactic used to against us, and we use it against each other. And we work really hard at stopping that and knowing that and becoming critically conscious of how the system is working to make us think like that. It's how generally good white people end up voting against the interests of the collective, because they've been convinced and they've been raised in the individualistic society. And so we have to push against that. We have to start naming white supremacy culture in our daily lives and how we have relationship with our families, with our children, with our grandparents, with our parents. We have to challenge how we use white supremacy culture to compete against each other and to fight for our family to be okay. When in reality, we have to start thinking about how can we be collective? How can we think and imagine the earth has a say? The animals have a say, the fish have a say, the insects have a say. They have a right to live and to breathe. And so when we're standing here, we are demanding that ConocoPhillips and these corporations recognize our sovereign right, the sovereign right of the caribou to travel to their birthing grounds, the sovereign right of the fish to go to their streams where they lay eggs, the sovereign right to be able to breathe clean air without getting cancer and drink clean water without getting a brain tumor, and our children being able to live in healthy places. So, you know, we have to shift not only how we practice humanity with each other, but also how we practice that with the earth. And so that's a collective. We have to challenge white supremacy culture. It has to be both and.
Absolutely. Koinak Bakru. I'm really super pleased that some of our other of our SILA team has joined. And again, not to put anyone on the spot, but I did find our SILA reply on one of the legal things that we have, and I could read from that, but I think more powerfully would be if we could hear. I see Nutalk has joined us and she's taken herself off mute. So I'm pleased to introduce Nutalk Simmons, one of our elders. We are very happy to have working with us on SILA. Go ahead, Nutalk.
Hi. Hi, Sarah Sakanyak. Hi, everyone. Uwangan nudak. Utkayawing niyo. Ang ayokak Samuel Simmons. Salarup. Akakraka atangan. Tulik ko yak. My grandparents are Abe and Mamie Simmons and Nita and Eli Angupkana. And I agree with, I think that was Rue who was speaking. We need to speak for the trees, for the land, for the plants, for the animals, the fish, the birds that fly. We need to get back to really believing that they are our relatives. They are the ones who teach us. They came first. So we cannot say that we are greater than them, but we can speak for them. We can speak for the land that they travel to. If they are coming from the air, we need to speak for the place where they live every summer when they come up north. We need to speak for the fish that travel our rivers, that the water is not polluted. We need to speak for them, for us, because we love to eat the fish. And the fish nowadays, especially in areas that have been explored and are being polluted because of the oil companies are dirtying up the water. And it's not good for the fish. It's not good for the animals that feed on them and it's not good for us that feed. Because they are there. The animals, they know they are there for us. So we have to reciprocate and speak for them. And I apologize for coming on late. I've been traveling so much and being in different time zones. I thought I was on a different time zone and I couldn't attend. Thank you, Sarah Sekanyak, for helping to remind me. But I care a lot for the land. I have seen the land. I will be 77 this month. And I have seen the land clean, spotless, way before Fruta Bay was developed. And I don't like the way it looks now. And I am sure that those who are in support of oil companies don't like it either. Because camping and hunting in the areas of Willow and beyond are not the way they were before the oil companies came. And I support you. I support you, Rue. I support you, Wasabi, for being there. Thank you for being there when we couldn't. And Deborah. Kuyanak. Thank you for letting me speak.
Koyadakbak Nutak. It's leadership from especially our elders, our Indigenous elders that bring us hope and inspiration. And this is the leadership that I like to see that we need in our country and beyond. And
Yes, I need to I spoke against development of Willow when I was in Catholic, and there was when I said that when I was a child and we were camping, we could just dip our cups in the water and drink, and there are many parts of Alaska now that we cannot do that because of development. And when I spoke people being sick, especially in Nuiqsut, where they are so close to where the oil companies are doing their work. The sicknesses, the diseases that have come on our people and on our fish and the animals have increased so much. And there was someone who at that meeting where I gave my testimony at the North Slope Borough building said that there was a health where a study was done, and that I can't remember exact words, I'm sorry, but this person said that there was a study and that there was no correlation between the sickness of the people and the oil companies. And after all the testimonies were over and we were going out, I asked the person who did the study, and I was told that the North Slope Borough did the study. And I know that North Slope Borough is very friendly about oil companies coming. So that was not a very honest thing that they did. So I just wanted to add that.
That's really important to note because, you know, there's a lot of different opinions about the science that's out there that's pretty clear about climate change, about our emissions and the relation of the emissions to climate. But when people are unclear about those things, we can look to the plastics. Plastics are a big problem right now. We're coming to terms with what nanoplastics, as plastics break down, and they are in now even water bottles. Plastics are choking our streams, they're choking our animals. They're now getting into our bodies. And plastics, just to remind folks that don't know, are a byproduct of petrochemical. They come out of oil and gas. And so as you know, it's a connected issue, the chemicals and the plastics and the emissions. It's all one big problem for human health, for the health of all of our life on Earth. And those that would just continually deny, you can't deny it. You look into the ocean, I mean, any given day, anywhere in the world, you can see right in front of you, unfortunately, plastic debris. So yeah, the studies, that as they say, they're inconclusive what exactly causes all of the cancers and such. We already know that is, one day science is going to catch up with what we as humans can see very clearly in front of our eyes. And that people are, we do know that cancer rates are rising, that the inflammation that people experience from toxicity is rising. And this is well established by science. And but we don't really need that to confirm what Indigenous peoples are saying all across the world. And uplifting the words of Casey Camp Horinek, uplifting the words of Tom Goldtooth, others, Indigenous leaders around the Turtle Island. We know that the way that society is going right now is not working for us. It's not working for people. It's not sustainable in any way. And we also know that we are highly addicted to oil and gas, and that it's going to take turning off the tap to fully to get people to find those alternatives that we need. But the ones that are there that we already know, even what wind and solar, alternative energy sources, it's the dragging of the feet by our so-called leaders who are in the pockets of the oil and gas industry. It's not good for people. That's one thing for sure. And thank you, Nutak, for uplifting our relatives and our water and Mother Earth and the animals. I know one of our board members on SILA, Robert Thompson, he's unable to join us at the moment. He's up in Kaktovik, Alaska. He wants us always to uplift the fish and the caribou, and specifically as well the sheep, the Dall sheep. He himself is a guide for people and a wildlife guide, and has seen devastation on wildlife. And and I know as a child of the scientific community of the North Slope that that the leadership of the North Slope Borough and others are very reluctant to say that there's a problem. We don't want to call attention, that we don't want to raise alarms about the polar bears, about the caribou, because we don't want to upset people. But at the same time, we have a right to know. We all have a right to know. This is what we're constantly going back to, that people have a right to know, and that to suppress the truth isn't just going to serve us. And so here we are, and we're going to court tomorrow morning. Rue and Charla are going to be sitting alongside our lawyers who are representing us, and just want to put like a lot of love and good vibes and energy into that space. And I was asked to announce websites for the listening audience. So I think you can find more about our about SILA on SILA Inuit. That's SILAINUAT.org. And there actually is the hearing tomorrow morning. It's at the federal courthouse in San Francisco, and we're not asking people to join us because of the formality, and we want to uplift our Indigenous people that are there, Rue and Charla being there on our behalf. But you can join the live stream of the hearing. And I'll put the link in the chat and post it below on our post as well, for folks that want to stand as a witness to what are they going to decide. Are they going to decide to go with ConocoPhillips and the corporations, the for-profit Native corporations who are pushing for this? We know that the state of Alaska is also, of course, aligned with the oil companies. We know we're a tiny but mighty group of people standing against giants. Nutak, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead. Do you have something to add?
Well, it was just the spelling. When you spelled SILA Inuit, it's INUIT. I heard you say INUAT, or unless I misheard you.
No, you heard me right. Our website is with an A, SILAInuit.org. I know it's not maybe correct in Inupiaq. But that is the website, SILAINUAT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was mistaken. Okay. Clear enough.
We also wanted to share that biologicaldiversity.org is also another organization that you can learn more about why it's important for no Arctic drilling. Biologicaldiversity.org, just as it spells. Our partners are here in the room with us. And I wanted to thank Colin and Roshi for all of the support y'all have provided us, and so grateful for your partnership and welcoming us to San Francisco. We're really thankful for you.
Wind sounds pretty crazy here. If you noticed, I keep looking up, right?
Well, I hope that there's no flooding and that you all stay safe and warm down there. And
Can I jump in about the word Inuit
yes,
really quick? Yeah, so it's not referring to Inuit like people, but Inua. And then the plural of Inua is Inuit. And that's the spirit or soul that exists in all people and animals. It's like the knowing and like the spirit that exists in all things, even the plants and mountains, water systems. That's Inua. And then like the plural of Inua is Inuit.
Koyanak. I
Can
have
I
some quizzes to take later.
can I ask who's on the call? I just see Sarah Sikanik and Rue and Charla on here.
Oh, hi, Poruk. This is a webinar, so there's folks watching that are not, we're the panelists, I guess. And I added you as a panelist in case you wanted to say any words. Puruk, about why you are standing with SILA to oppose the Willow Project.
Yeah, I can certainly respond with that. Hi, everybody. I'm Puruk Erica Khan. I grew up and was born and raised in Utqiagvik. My grandpa and my grandma are Thomas and Dorothy Palingona. And Thomas, he grew up actually in a sod home in what is now known as the 1002 area on Flaxman Island. His dad and uncles housed somebody who was exploring oil when they were growing up on the sod house on Flaxman Island. It's a pretty interesting story. I'm still learning about it in my genealogy. But I really, how I can, encompass what is going on in our region is I have had, in my 20s, I have had watched a lot of people, a lot of youth that have died very young, that have passed away very young. I had 2 classmates that had passed away due to cancer, and they were 6 months apart, and they were both 26 years old. And to say that it's not from the result of our lands lost due to oil, or because largely what we eat, what we consume is whale, is caribou, is geese, fish. That is what we really rely on. And in 2019, I do remember when my brother harpooned a whale, that the North Borough have scientists that come to take samples of the whale. And they do this for every whale that's caught. And I was talking to one of the scientists, and they found parasites in the whale in the kidneys. And when I was talking to her about it, I said, "Is that normal?" And she said, "Yeah, it's been normal in recent years with the waters getting warmer." So these are the things that that are hovering over our communities. All these issues. It's almost like it's a prostitution of land, a prostitution of culture right now that's happening among the North Slope. It's sad to see that our youth, with how much money, with how much funds that we have, are not going towards our livelihood, but instead rather focusing on the extraction so we could, as a society, flourish. But that's not been the case. We have not been flourishing as a society, as a people, as Inupiat on the North Slope. And I say prostitution of land and people because if you go to Prudhoe, if you go to Alpine, they have little stores there. And in the stores, they'll have a picture of a lady, and they'll say like icy cold, like never been to Prudhoe Bay or something like that. Something along those words of it's prostitution of people. That's the reality of it. And if we keep continuing if we allow our leaders and these outside entities to keep drilling and extracting our land, we can't mitigate it. Like once it's done, we cannot take it back. It's going to stay on our land. Like just how our military and the Navy came in the 60s and 70s and even prior and brought all of their military equipment and their barrels of oil. And, I've even heard of an airplane that has risen from the ground because when they left, they buried it. And these are the things that they have left our people with. Once it happens to our land, we cannot mitigate it. It's not going to be fixed. It's not going to be taken away. We are going to be the ones left to deal with it. And they're extracting our lands, and there's no care. There's no remorse for it. And so I just want to say that, and Queen Up for letting me share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Puruk. I want to uplift that everyone's sharing here today, especially from Alaska. It takes a lot of courage because we are faced with a very oppositional, there's a whole very well-funded group that is that slams us. Anytime we speak up, we can be blacklisted from getting jobs. We'll face repercussions among our own family and friends. And it's a very real struggle to feel as though you should speak up for the land, you should speak up for, the trajectory that the country, that our nation, the US is taking. But while we know that when our spirit tells us to speak on these issues, we have to do it. Violence and death threats too. Somebody, Panganga uplifted, that's true. There's even just here in our chat, we had some really ugly, violent messages that I immediately deleted because, yeah, we know the narrative that they're pushing is that we've been brainwashed by the outsiders, that only outside environmental companies are pushing the narrative of climate change and of the need to transition away from fossil fuels, and that, and this is even coming from indigenous peoples who make a lot of money off of oil and gas. And it's a tough situation to be in. And I just want to uplift everybody here. We are sending out so much love and positivity. We are protected. We have a lot of protection going on, and we had 5 million people over 5 million people sign our petition supporting our Stop Willow work. And so we'll continue. We may not win the case tomorrow. We hope we do. But the continuation of fighting for justice, of rising in our power, it's going to continue on regardless of what this outcome of this court case is. And we'll continue listening to the guidance of our Indigenous leadership, our Indigenous elders especially. And that brings us to the end of the hour. So I thank you all so much for joining.
Stop Willow.
Hashtag.
Blue.
Yeah, that's right.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing.
All right. Safe travels tomorrow to the courthouse and back. Hope you all enjoy your day. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Aw.
Thank you so much for all your kind words, and in solidarity, we move forward together.
Good to hear from y'all too.
Devra.
Take care. Your ancestors are with you always.
All right, signing off.